Can I have some? Are you gonna eat that?
Of course I'm going to feed this little child. Why wouldn't I?
You think I'm gonna give you the last piece of food? Fuck no! Fuck no! This shit is mine!
I didn't even pick that!
Where did you even come from? The only reason we found you is because your dad was screaming for help and he's dead.
Why does this game do this?
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Terxsu. Y'all can just call me Sonny for real. Alright, so look, I'm a huge Telltale's The Walking Dead fan. If that wasn't obvious enough, it's my favorite video game of all time. No debate. But today, I'm putting the fanboy cape to the side because even though I love it, I can't lie. This game has problems. And the funny thing is, the flaws are baked into what makes it so addictive in the first place. I'm talking about the choices, the thing Telltale built their whole brand on. So we're gonna break down how The Walking Dead pulls off one of gaming's best magic tricks and why the trick eventually stops working. Alright, so let's be real here. The Walking Dead makes you feel like the most stressed out person alive over choices that half the time don't even matter. Like, you'll be sweating bullets over whether to save Doug or Carly in episode 1, thinking this is gonna change the whole story, only for the both of them to get bodied in episode 3 anyways. Same scene, same angle, just swap the character model out. We basically just picked which one gets the 2 extra episodes of dialogue. That's the kind of theme with these games. They tell you things like, Clementine will remember that. But will she really? Like, half the time she remembers something and then 2 episodes later it's never brought up again. A lot of these characters have the memory of a goldfish. Take Larry in the meat locker. You can try to help him, you can stand back, you can beg people to chill out. Doesn't matter. Kenny still drops the salt lick and caves his head in. The group still becomes a mess after. The outcome is locked. All that really changes is whether you piss Kenny off or not. And then there's Lee's arm. Man, don't even get me started. They make you believe cutting it off might buy him more time. Nope. It just makes you walk around the rest of the episode looking like you got nerfed for no reason. Lee's dying no matter what. That's the pattern across the whole series. Season 2 ends with what feels like a huge choice. Stick with Kenny, stick with Jane, or go solo. And then season 3, A New Frontier, just speed runs through all of that in a flashback. Doesn't matter who you rolled with. They kill your pick off in a cutscene and then boom, fresh start. I feel like that's the moment a lot of players started to realize they were getting railroaded. Now, to be fair, sometimes little stuff does matter. If you're backing Kenny through thick and thin, whether he pissed you off or not, he becomes a ride or die. If you don't, he'll let you fend for yourself in a way. And there are times when Clementine notices when you do savage stuff like kill the St. John's, and it shapes how she talks to you. People remember if you open up about Lee's past and they act differently around you, but those are relationship tweaks. They change the flavor, not the main course. That's the illusion of choice in The Walking Dead. The greater plot? It's set in stone. Lee's gonna die, Clem's gonna survive, Kenny's gonna spiral, no matter what you do. But the illusion works because while you're playing, it feels personal. Like, your Lee told Clem to stay strong, or your Lee spared an enemy, or your Lee told Kenny he was full of shit. All of those choices stick with you, even when you realize the destination never changed. And this is where I gotta get critical for a second. This is the only real problem with Telltale's The Walking Dead. They sold the series on choice. That was the hook, that was the tagline. But in practice, it's artful deception. It doesn't shape the story, it shapes your emotions. Now, don't get me wrong, I still love it. The illusion works on me every time, I'll admit it. But once you see the strings, it kind of hurts the replay value. Like, why run back when you already know the ending can't change? That's the core flaw of this series. It's a masterpiece in storytelling. But if we're talking gameplay, that illusion of choice eventually cracks. And once it does, it's not hard to notice. Okay, so if the illusion of choice wasn't enough, here's the part that really kills me. Sometimes the game doesn't even let you say what you picked. You'll try to be all calm, you know what I'm saying? Keep the peace, pick the reasonable option, and then your character just decides to tweak out completely. The best example of this? Javi in season 3, by far.
Except himself. You know what, David? Time for you to open your eyes. Kate's gonna leave your ass. What? She told me so.
Javi!
And in your head, you were probably thinking Javi was just gonna say something like, yo, chill out, or nothing too crazy. Like, come the freak on, man. And it's not like this happens once and never again. This is just how Telltale wrote their dialogue. The little text box will say something like, be nice. So you pick it thinking you're about to be polite. Then your character spits out the most backhanded line possible. Or you'll hit stay calm and suddenly they're yelling like you pick start a fight. Half the time, serious moments end up funny just because the style doesn't match what you thought you picked. It got so bad that it became a meme. People started screenshotting those tiny options and comparing them to what the character actually blurted out. It's like going to order fries at a restaurant and they bring you a whole potato. Like, close enough, but that's not what I asked for. I ain't gonna lie, bro, that was so corny. I hope that made sense to y'all, but yeah. I hate to bring other games into this, but since it's made by the same company, the Telltale Batman series is guilty of this too. And look, I get it, they had to simplify dialogue choices to fit on screen and keep the pace moving. But when the difference is that big, it rips you out of the moment. You stop feeling like you're role-playing and start feeling like you're babysitting a character who can't follow instructions. It's funny, but it's also frustrating. And this is where I'm a little harsher on the game, because if the whole point of Telltale is the story and characters adapt to the decisions you make, then at least let me say what I picked. If you're gonna take away the impact of my big story choices, fine, but don't take away my words too. That's the one space where I should feel in control. That's why these moments stick out so much. The illusion of choice I can forgive. That's part of the design. But when you give me a button that straight up lies to my face, that's when I start clowning the game. I believe Telltale did all of this on purpose. Yes, all the stuff we've been clowning on. The illusion of choice, the dialogue wheel lying to your face, all of that. None of it was an accident. They weren't trying to make Detroit become human, where entire characters can die in chapter 3 and never show up again. And before you guys start typing up, I know The Walking Dead came out before Detroit become human. It's just an example. They weren't building an Until Dawn type of deal where everyone's survival genuinely rewrites the ending. Telltale was operating with way less time, way less budget, and a completely different goal. They wanted to get in your head. Looking back at season 1, we mentioned that saving Carly or Doug doesn't actually matter to the plot. They both die later by the same setup, by the same shot. But what did it do to you? You felt guilty. You felt like you failed the one you chose. That's what Telltale was going for. Same with the meat locker. You can argue with Kenny until you're blue in the face about Larry. You can beg for calm. Kenny's still dropping that damn salt lick. And then there's the big one. Lee's death. No matter what you do, he's done. But the real choice is, do you let Clem shoot him or do you let her walk away? Mechanically, it's the same result. Lee's gone either way, right? But emotionally, that decision hits you in the chest. That was about deciding what kind of memory you wanted Clem to carry with her. That's why I say this was intentional. The story itself is a straight line. They never pretended otherwise. What they did was give you the feeling of steering it. So when something tragic happened, guess what? It felt like it was your fault. And when the game tells you Clementine will remember that, you believed it, even if it never came up again. That's the emotional sleight of hand that they're pulling. But in defense of Telltale and or Skybound, you gotta understand the context. They weren't a giant studio like Quantic Dream with 5-year development cycles. They were cranking these episodes out every couple of months on a tight schedule. Branching storylines where one character lives through 4 whole episodes while another dies in chapter 1, that would have doubled or tripled the work. It just wasn't practical. So instead, they put their energy into writing one strong story and letting you bend the tone around it. That's why they carried this formula into everything else. Wolf Among Us, Batman, Guardians of the Galaxy, all of that was about giving you one path that felt richer because you had to make the calls along the way. And honestly, for season 1, it was genius. It fooled everybody, myself included. It's only in hindsight, after playing other choice-based games, that you see the cracks. But in the moment, that formula was lethal and made you feel like you were living with consequences that, on paper, didn't even exist. Season 1 was untouchable because none of us knew the trick. You thought saving Carly or Doug was going to branch the whole story. You thought cutting off Lee's arm might buy him a chance. And it worked because you were stressed out of your mind in the moment. Even when those decisions circled back to the same result, you didn't notice or you didn't care. By the time season 2 came around, people were onto it. You'd make these big life or death calls, and then a couple of episodes later, the game would basically erase them. Nick is the perfect example. You save him in episode 2 and think, alright, here's Clem's new sidekick. We're gonna see his arc grow. By episode 4, he's dead in the most forgettable way possible. Killed off screen, tossed in a fence like set dressing. It felt lazy. Like the writers had no idea what to do with him after you saved him. Sarah's another one. You can put your whole heart into protecting her, convincing her to keep going, keep fighting, pulling her out of danger. And no matter what you do, she still dies horribly. It means nothing whether you tried. It's just about which death animation you unlock. That's when players started realizing their effort didn't matter. It's not a choice, it's a menu of cutscenes. And then there's the iconic Kenny versus Jane showdown. That was supposed to be the crown jewel of season 2. The decision that defined your entire run. Are you sticking with Kenny, this broken man who you've been through hell with? Or do you go with Jane, the survivor who pushes Clem to be harder? Or maybe you walk away and try to raise AJ on your own. It feels massive. People argued about it for years, but then season 3 strolls in and wipes the whole slate clean. No matter what you picked, Kenny and Jane both get killed in quick flashbacks. The one time Telltale gave you what looked like a true branching path, they erased it in the next season just so the new protagonist, Javi, could have a tidy story. That's when a lot of fans just threw up their hands and realized that they're agonizing over choices that are just gonna get deleted later. And you could feel it in the community too. After season 1, everyone was obsessed with replays, comparing saves, and debating what was canon. After season 2, and especially after that season 3 intro, the hype died down, and smaller choices started to feel pointless too. You could spend an entire episode building trust with characters, trying to hold the group together, and then one bad scene would reset everything like your earlier decisions never happened. It broke immersion. Instead of feeling like Clem's journey was shaped by your leadership, it felt like the writers were constantly pushing her down a pre-written hallway. Now, I don't think this was laziness. I think it was Telltale's reality. Keeping a character alive for multiple episodes meant writing new scenes, recording new dialogue, animating new branches. They'd converge the storylines back to the same core beats. Smart for production, but bad for the illusion. And that's the heart of why people rank season 1 so high and give the later seasons more mixed reviews. It's not necessarily because the writing fell off, it's just that the magic trick stopped working. Season 1 fooled you because you didn't know the con. By season 2, you started catching on, and then by season 3, the curtain was pulled all the way back. You weren't agonizing over what you should do anymore. You were just picking which flavor of tragedy you wanted to watch play out. By the time we hit the final season, it felt like Telltale had finally learned from all those years of choices that don't matter. And it makes sense, right? This was their last shot at wrapping up Clementine's story, so there was no next season they had to keep clean for. They could finally let your decisions stick without worrying about undoing them later. And man, you can feel the difference immediately. The first big one, AJ. This is the first time in the series where your choices don't only affect dialogue or who side-eyes you in the next scene. They actually shape a person. AJ listens to you, he watches you, he copies you. You tell him violence is the way, he grows into that. You teach him to show mercy, he remembers that too. By the end of the season, AJ is your reflection. All of the little conversations and Clementine will remember that moments we got across the earlier seasons finally add up here. Except this time it's not an empty notification. And it's not only AJ. The game finally lets you decide who lives and who doesn't in a way that actually changes the ending a little bit. You can keep Lewis alive or lose him. Violet can make it or she can die. They're completely different outcomes that reshape how the last few episodes play out. When I finished my first run, I actually wanted to replay it to see the other endings because the differences were real. That's something I could never say about season 2 or season 3. What made it hit harder is that this time, the stakes were about what kind of world Clementine leaves behind. Earlier seasons gave you the choose between two characters, but they'll die later anyway type of thing. The final season gave you choices that stuck until the credits rolled. The game didn't hold your hand and it didn't reset everything within the next episode. It lets you sit with those consequences all the way to the end. And let's be real, it also helped that this was Telltale's swan song. They weren't planning a season 5. They didn't have to funnel the story into one neat entry point for the next protagonist. They could actually break things. That's why people say this was the most impactful season, since the first one at least, because it finally felt like the series was keeping its promise. I'll be honest, this is the only season where I felt nervous going into the ending, because I didn't know what was locked in and what wasn't. After 3 games of the illusion being exposed, that anxiety came back. And that's why the final season gets so much love. It brought the magic back by actually doing the thing Telltale always claimed they were doing. Alright, let's zoom out for a second, because talking about Telltale's illusion of choice doesn't really land until you compare it to the other choice-based games out there. That's when you realize just how different The Walking Dead actually was. Take Detroit Become Human. That game gives you choices and then it literally shows you the receipts. At the end of every chapter, you get a flow chart with every single branch you missed. And some of those branches aren't little dialogue swaps either. They are entire storylines you'll never see unless you make the opposite choice. Whole characters can be alive or dead halfway through the game, and it reshapes the rest of the story. You can replay Detroit 5 times and still feel like you're seeing something new. Meanwhile, replaying The Walking Dead usually just means you unlock a slightly different cutscene before the story snaps back into the same track. Then you've got Until Dawn. That game was basically built as a horror movie simulator, and it works because every single person in the cast can either survive the night or get taken out. That means the ending isn't a reskin of the same story. It actually changes depending on who you manage to keep alive. Save everybody and the credits roll on a victory lap. Screw up and half the cast gets slaughtered. Compare that to Telltale, where people were doomed no matter what. And then you've got Life is Strange. But I'm gonna use Life is Strange 2 for this example. That game didn't brag about huge binary choices. It built its whole narrative around little things stacking up, teaching Daniel how to act, how to treat people, whether to lie or to be honest. And then at the very end, all those small calls blended into what ending you got. It wasn't always obvious in the moment, but you could look back and see how your behavior shaped them. Compare that to The Walking Dead, where you could spend hours making choices with the character and it wouldn't matter. Their fate was locked in from the start. Now, does this mean Telltale failed to compare to these other games? Not really. They weren't even aiming at the same target. Detroit wanted to be a giant branching tree where you're constantly aware of all the possibilities. Until Dawn was designed around body count. Life is Strange 2 wanted you to feel the ripple effect of every tiny action. Telltale wanted to hit you in the gut. They weren't building sandboxes, they were writing TV dramas. The choice was about how you felt about the plot. That's why even when you stack them side by side, The Walking Dead still hits harder than most. Sure, in Detroit you can keep Connor alive or turn him into a deviant hunter or whatever, but ask someone what moment stuck with them the most from a choice-based game, and 9 times out of 10 they'll bring up Lee in that final scene with Clementine. It was one perfect gut punch. So yeah, that's the only real problem with Telltale's The Walking Dead. The choices stress you out, they make you argue with yourself, but at the end of the day, the story was always on rails. Sometimes that illusion worked beautifully, sometimes it backfired, and sometimes it was just straight up comedy. But even with all that, it's still my favorite game of all time. No other choice-based game has ever hit me the way this one did. Telltale gave us Lee and Clementine. That bond carried the whole thing, illusion or not. Anyway, that's all I got for this one. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you still feel like the choices mattered, or did you catch on to the trick early? Also, let me know if you guys would like to see a certain game get covered. I know I talk about The Walking Dead and The Last of Us all the time. They are my 2 favorite games, but I'm not a one-trick pony, I swear. I know a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? I know Life is Strange 2, like I mentioned. I know Life is Strange 1. I know Detroit Become Human, Until Dawn, Tomb Raider, Red Dead Redemption. Come on now, hey! Alright, I'm done. It's been your boy Sunny, but of course y'all can call me Terxsu, and as always, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace out.